What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here, Cheesehead TV, ready to talk some football with my good buddy Justis. Justis, how are you? How was your holiday, man?
Good. Got snowed in. Drove back to Portland, in between, the freeze or the melt and freeze cycle.
Right,
Didn't want to get caught in the
get
ice.
that cold and the ice hits. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
I
The
feel you.
the
That's good.
snow is overrated. The ice is really what you got to worry about. So we made it out of
Very
Dodge
fair.
before the ice trapped
Good.
us in.
Good to hear you. Good to hear it. I'm glad you're safe, secure, ready to talk some football. Talking about the Packers on Christmas Day against the Browns. Um, Look, I know a lot's been made about the fact that they only won by 2, et cetera, et cetera. Look, I'm of the mind that I never apologize for a team that gets a W in the NFL. What were your overall thoughts on how the Packers performed on Christmas Day?
Their tackling was really bad. I
That is
think
true.
that's something you could take away from it. Outside of that, though, I mean, they did have a 2-score lead. I know a lot of people are making a ton about the last 2 weeks, and
Right.
they were a great team against the spread. They had the lead coming into the last 2 weeks, and now they're second behind Dallas after that Washington game. But I mean, they were up multiple scores against Baltimore and against Cleveland. I know it doesn't look pretty at the end when the other team has a chance to score, but building up those leads does matter, and they still were missing opportunities early in those games. They were making up that score differential, in the second and third quarter, but
All right.
both opening drives against Baltimore and Cleveland, they had Devontae on what looked like it could have, potentially gone for a touchdown. And I don't know if there's anyone you'd rather have throw the ball than Aaron Rodgers, and anyone you'd rather have,
Rather on the other
get
end of it, right?
targeted, yeah, than
Right.
Devontae. So like some
Right.
things aren't shaking out right, but when you're getting these games where everything isn't clicking and you're still coming out with a win and you're still, you're up by 2 scores at certain points and the other team is having to come from behind. I think that's still somewhat of a good sign.
I agree.
Their pass
Very much
rush is
so.
something that is worrying me though. Just because it seems like they really only have 2 guys. Like it's Preston, it's Gary,
Well,
and the
yeah,
guys off
exactly.
the
And if
bench,
those
they're not
guys
given anything.
if those guys aren't getting home, right, it's worrying. It is interesting to me though, because of that fact, we still haven't seen Joe Barry like hit the gas, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like it's still a lot of four-man rushes, not a lot of exotics. I mean, there was a time there coming into like the Pittsburgh game where it seemed like he was about ready to kind of unleash the hounds, so to speak. Like you saw a bunch of different looks and coverages kind of designed to confuse the quarterback, get free rushers, etc. But man, during this second half of the year, the stretch that we've kind of been in, whether it's, getting home with those four or not, he just has been kind of reluctant, I would say, to really call heavy pressures, really 5, 6, even 7 man at times. That just have been few and far between. And to your point, yep, it's been you got to get either Preston or Gary, have them win, or it's not going to happen. And it is interesting to watch how opponents have really kind of noticed that because you can pick any kind of down and distance where you got to expect a pass. Like there's a reasonable assumption that the quarterback is going to rise and fire. They have chipped and or doubled either Gary or Preston on a number of these, and the rest of the guys just haven't been able to get home. Do you think that's a case of they are playing with a lead a lot of the times, especially in the second half, and they just don't want to commit numbers and they want to play coverage?
For whatever reason, I mean, the scheme is pretty vanilla, I would say, throughout the
Agreed.
season. Like they're just kind of like
Yeah.
rolling out the ball, and to the credit of the front office, I mean, they have the talent to be able to do that. When your corners are playing the way that they are, when you get a guy like Rashawn Gary being a Pro Bowl alternate off of the bench when Za'Darius goes out, for he's put on IR and stuff like that.
Right.
They're sure getting a lot out of the guys that they have in the building. I will say, like they've gone through stretches in the season where they've seen similar type of offenses, and I think that's kind of been the tail of the season. So like early on in the year, they're getting heavy personnel teams. They're getting the New Orleans Saints who are going out there with 3 tight ends because they don't have any wide receivers, right? And they're running the
Right.
ball and they can't get them on the ground. They get Detroit, that was a heavy formation team. Remember, we all were watching that on what was it, like Monday Night Football, where Jared
Yep.
Goff is just back there patting the
Right.
ball for a whole first quarter. He couldn't
Right.
get any pressure on him. It seemed like when their defense really got good, like in terms of the numbers, it's after that Steelers run, right,
Yep.
where they're done
Absolutely.
seeing all these tight ends and they're getting Arizona, they're getting Kansas City, they're getting
Seattle.
Washington.
Yep.
They're
Yep.
getting all these spread teams that have tight ends who are actually wide receivers. So there's
Right.
not really that threat of it. And then now you're getting back to, okay, you just got Baltimore, who's gonna run with a 300-pound fullback. Like that's what they do.
Right.
You're getting Cleveland that wants to run with Nick Chubb because they don't trust their quarterback. You're gonna get Minnesota this upcoming week. They use tight ends plenty. So
Right.
I think like what they've had to do structurally has kind of like gone in stretches. But what I really worry about is when they do go into like these multiple tight end sets, they got to start not just playing base. Because when you're just playing base, if they can block up your edges, then it just turns into like Devondre Campbell, please save us. You know what I
Well, it's
mean?
funny too because there was a lot of that against Cleveland, where I think you and I had a message back and forth at one point when it was pretty clear that whenever Tipo was out there on the edge,
Oh
they
man,
were gonna run at him. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like, and if you're an offensive coordinator, of course you are, right? I mean, especially if you have Cleveland's front. Yeah, I'm gonna target that undersized pass rusher who they're throwing out there for some reason on early downs. Yeah, teams are gonna do that, and Cleveland in particular had a lot of success, especially on that right side. I didn't see anything the Packers did to ever stop it. I think Cleveland just stopped calling it, which was kind of a mystery to me. And as you say, they wanted to kind of go away from their quarterback, but at the end there, they did rise and fire, and the Packers were the beneficiaries of it. But to me, yeah, man, I'm with you. The one area you point to, like if there's a physical run game, can the Packers stop it on the edge? It's not so much like in the A gap. To me, it's on the edge, and that's where I thought Cleveland did a lot of their work.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they wanted to run outside with Chubb, is what it seemed like their kind of game plan was. And even that 2-minute drill, right? I mean, they're running the ball. They're running the ball to get it in the
Yeah.
field goal range, and they came up. Green Bay made a play at the end, but I do wonder. Early in the season when they were going against these heavy fronts, they were definitely playing more games with their linebackers. Like that's when
Right.
Warren Burks was getting on the field. They were rotating in like Ty Summers, who's obviously on IR now. They were
Right.
trying to work in Jalen Smith a little bit. I do wonder if they start looking at Devondre Campbell and start saying like, I know this guy, probably should have made the Pro Bowl as an inside linebacker, but if we need an extra body, kind of on the line of scrimmage, why wouldn't we start using him? And like, if Warren
Bring
Burks can
him
blitz from
down, right?
depth, yeah.
Right.
So like, I wonder if the future of this Packers defense isn't just Barnes and Campbell playing every single snap, and it starts being like, we ran plays for Warren Burks, and we ran him in the preseason, and we ran him early in the season, and we've gotten away from him now. And he sure is a key special teamer, but like we need him on defense too. So I
Yeah.
wonder if they start working him into the rotation a little bit more, especially with the playoffs. Because the other thing that you don't know either is like how much you're holding to the vest to like go into the playoffs. But
Yep.
if you're fighting for a 1 seed, I mean that's something that is worth fighting for. That's not
It's
something you just punt away.
absolutely, especially with a team like Minnesota coming into town. And I know they threw all over the yard the last time when they were in Minnesota, but it's going to be a very different circumstance this time around. Who knows Dalvin Cook's availability? But you
And
can't
Thielen
imagine,
too.
and
Thielen's got
Thielen as
banged up
well.
again.
You can't imagine that they want to come into Lambeau and ask Kirk Cousins to throw it 30 times, 30 plus times. Last time they came into Lambeau and won is because they buttoned up, went power, and ran all over Green Bay. I got to expect that's going to be the game plan on Sunday night when it's bitterly cold. Again, I don't expect them to think, oh, hey, Cousins, do what you did last time. I got to think this is another game where Minnesota's going to try and get on the edge and run all over Green Bay.
Yeah, and you're gonna need some interior penetration there too. Everyone wants to talk about the edge and stuff like that, but if you get penetration on the inside, I mean, that running back hopefully doesn't even get out there on like stretch blocks and stuff like
Right.
that. So
Exactly.
hopefully, Lowry, can make some plays. He had that early season flash, or I guess like mid-season flash. It was like
Right.
from like week probably 3 to like week 8 or something like that. He looked like a Pro Bowler. You were like,
Right.
who,
There was a
who the hell
play
is
every
this?
game where he just absolutely destroyed somebody. Like you were just like,
Absolutely.
wait, where did this guy come from?
Yeah, between him, Slayton coming off of the bench and giving us some
Right.
nice things. Hopefully, Kingsley Kiki can
Get
make
on
the
the
active
field.
roster.
Right.
Yeah, that was kind of an odd situation. I don't think you were there for the presser. I don't think LaFleur even got asked about.
No, it's funny
Kiki.
because you have so many things that you want to ask about. I asked about
No,
the
I
challenge.
get you. I'm not
You know what I
blaming you.
mean?
I'm just saying it.
No, I
I
feel
want
you
to make
though. I
sure.
feel you. It is interesting, and I do think that's a question I'll probably, if it doesn't get asked, will be asking Montgomery about, because you got to think he has a say in that, right?
Right,
Jerry's
for
got
sure.
to talk about what his guys, why they're available or why they aren't. There's got to be something there, and I do think Kingsley did not have, a great couple weeks leading up to this game, so maybe that had something to do with it, trying to light a fire, maybe. Let's switch it around. Talking about lines, let's talk about the offensive line. Um, a lot's been made about the fact that they are down so many bodies, and they obviously are. You can't talk about the line without talking about Adam Stenovich and the work he's done. You look at, obviously Yash coming in and playing left tackle at the level he's played at. Now, we all know, anybody who really looks at it, how much Aaron Rodgers helps in that regard, as far as not only his knowledge of the game, but getting the ball out, not holding it, et cetera, which is something when he talking about Aaron Rodgers, something he likes to do is hold the ball, try and let things develop. He's done a very good job of not doing that, especially given the guys that are playing up front. Now you look at this game on Christmas, Yash gets banged up. Braden has to come in for a few snaps. Nobody wants that long term. And I know Braden's now been placed on the COVID list, so who knows about his availability. But is this something that's sustainable, you think, over the course of this next, month or what have you? I mean, I know we've all been teased about Bakhtiari possibly coming back. That's seemingly been going on forever. Who knows about, Billy Turner, Josh Myers, etc. But if these are the guys that they have to try and make a run with, can Aaron Rodgers keep this up, do you think?
I think so. I mean, the toughest pass rush that they were going to get was, the Rams, and they already went kind of toe to toe with them. So
Right.
I think in terms of that, yes. The one big question that I have, if there's any trait that worries me the most out of any of the starting five guys, it's Newman handling stunts, and that's something Tampa's going to do damn near every
100%.
down. So
Yeah.
that's something that
Cleveland
definitely
got him
worries
with one
me.
on Saturday.
Yep.
That one where Rodgers had to get rid of it. Again, talking about him getting rid of the ball, but he got absolutely whacked on
Yeah.
a stunt that they were both. I think both he and the center were late to recognize, and free rusher right there. To your exact point, um, definitely agree there. Um, but yeah, to me, it's like all about like talking. Look, you want to talk about Aaron Rodgers, you want to talk about the performance this year. The numbers speak for themselves. They've been insane. Everyone talking about him possibly winning another MVP. I don't think he should win it for all the numbers he's put up. I think he should win it for the job he's done with that offensive line in front of him. You talk about that
Yeah.
Rams game as a perfect example. I mean, there are plays where it's third and long, and he's got the snap in shotgun, and he's got dudes in his lap in less than 3 seconds, and he's getting the ball out. I mean, that, whether it's complete or not, the fact that he's doing this on a bum toe, knows he's got to get rid of it, doesn't have the mobility he usually does. It's insane to me what he's doing. Like from that, on that, like kind of plane alone, the fact that we know Aaron Rodgers likes to hold it. We know he likes to get outside the pocket and make things happen. He hasn't been able to do much of that this year, and he's still playing at an insanely high level. To me, that's crazy. That's just crazy.
He's the runaway MVP. I don't think there's
Should
any
be,
question
right?
on the field. He has to at this point, right? I know he made that joke with McAfee where McAfee was saying like you're never going to win an MVP
I
again, right?
I
And he was like, I think that's factual. He's got to get it. Like I think if
I
it's
think
like
so too.
I think if it was like a tie, I think maybe that comes into play. I don't think it's close this year. I think Aaron
I
Rodgers is the
agree.
MVP. I think he's going to get it. They're going to have it handed to him, through a Zoom video or something like that. But um,
So
to your
true.
to your point about the offensive line, they did say yesterday, Myers sounds like LaFleur isn't ruling out the idea of Myers returning
Coming
this
back.
season,
Yeah. Yep.
but at this point, we would have thought. I mean, if we were placing bets at the time of Myers' injury, we would have said he was already back by now. We didn't think that
Yeah.
this was going to
It
be a
felt it
season
felt
ender,
that way, right? It's
right?
but that's what I always point out to people. It's like because we're not privy to the medical stuff, we only get reporting around it, and even that is
No,
pretty vague. You never know. It's like
I mean Bakhtiari had a surprise follow-up surgery, and we didn't know about it for a couple of days
for a
too. The
couple
the
of
one
days,
the
exactly.
one thing
You know?
Turner implies action. That's the one thing I will say.
Yeah,
The fact
agreed.
that he hasn't been put on injured reserve, and injured reserve would have only taken him
3
off of the
weeks.
field for 3 weeks, and now we're
Right.
coming up on week 3. That tells us if they initially diagnosed the injury correctly, right now is like the time frame for him to kind of return to the field. So
At
I
least
would
to
assume,
practice, like maybe not to
yes,
the game, but at least to practice. Absolutely, very
yeah.
much
So
agree.
I assume that Turner at the very least is going to be back for the playoffs. But
Exactly.
hopefully both of those guys are back. Hopefully Jair's back. I don't know. I don't know about Z. It doesn't seem like they're too
Z,
optimistic about
yeah, I
Z. And
don't.
Z would make the biggest difference out of all of them, I
Uh,
think.
well, I mean, Z, Jair, they both make huge amounts of difference. But to your point about the pass rush, obviously you love just another chess piece as far as how you want to attack an offensive front. Um, it's interesting too because you look at the running game. You talk about all the stuff Aaron's doing in the passing game, etc. But it's the running game to me that if you could just get a couple of those guys back, even if it's just Josh, really, I think that makes a world of difference as far as how they can go about. Because they've been, Matt, I asked him point blank about the usage of like angle blocks and some of the power stuff they've been running this year, as opposed to what has traditionally in the past been such a zone heavy scheme. And they still do some of that, but man, the stretch zone is completely almost gone out of this offense. And you have to think some of that's the timing, right? Some of that's the ability of Bakhtiari and these guys to get out in space, make some of those reach blocks, especially at the center position, where you're not asking Lucas Patrick to do that. Um, but I think if they could get just one or two of those guys back, that makes a world of difference to the running game. Because I think right now you're seeing what they are able to get between the tackles is due to either one of two things, and it both comes down to the backs in question. It's either Aaron Jones being able to get skinny and find yardage there that probably isn't blocked up very well, or it's just AJ Dillon. You saw a couple of times against Cleveland where there's a backside kind of available. So he makes that cut and just, sees two guys there and just barrels into them. And it's sheer power on his part where he never gets pushed back. He's always gaining yards after contact. And that's what you're getting. It'd be nice to be able to block some of that up a little bit better and really get your backs cooking because then play action works a little bit better. Aaron can work off from under center a little bit better. To me, that's where the biggest difference would probably come from the offensive line because I think Yash and Kelly have held up pretty well when it comes to pass pro. To me, it's all about the run game and the real lack of push and or matching up well. I mean, Cleveland, I thought handled them. I thought Baltimore obviously handled them. I think that's been kind of the biggest detriment when it comes to the offensive line is the run game. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, AJ Dillon has some of the most impressive 4 or 5 yard runs I think in the league this year with
Totally.
the way he's just eating those yards through contact. They seem to have gone into like some like pin and pull stuff a little bit more too because
Right.
the fact that like they just aren't able to like win with strength and athleticism on the edge in terms of just like this guy is outside of you, go run outside of him and also reach block him and seal the
Right.
edge. So they got into some pin and pull stuff even when Braden was in there, right? Like that
Yep.
3rd and 1,
That
he's
third and
off of the
one,
bench.
I hated
He's the
that
lead
call. I
blocker.
hated that call so
It was
much.
a bold call to
Dude,
have your
dude has
fifth
literally
tackle.
been dude has literally been on the field for 3 plays, and you're calling that on 3rd and 1 to his side. Like,
That
that
it
kinda
was a
blew my
bold
mind.
call. I know sometimes you're like, "Hey, look, they gave us the look. We're running the play," but
Right.
I don't know. Into the boundary with your 5th tackle leading on the pin and pull.
Not about that
That's a
life.
bold call for
I'm not
me.
about that life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
that
hear you.
seems to be like one way that they're doing it. It was they're saying like, "All right, you want to win the edge? Win the edge. We're gonna run pin and pull, and we're just gonna kick them out from the inside. Then if we can't win on the outside, and instead of it hitting the D gap, it's gonna hit on the C gap after the pin and pull and stuff like that. So
Right.
they're certainly doing some stuff like when they go against teams that run like true like 3-4 stuff, and when they're running like bear fronts, like they are going into like power. Like the Chicago Bears game was a huge
Right.
one where they basically switched up their whole situation. And this was when the tight ends were still healthy, and they were like, we got to get DeGuara in there because we got to start running counter and stuff, and he's got to start moving across the formation.
He
So
had 3 just outstanding blocks in that game on the edge where
just
they
dirting
like you said,
guys.
oh my god, it was such a joy to watch. I mean, when they get him in space, especially when it's usually on a defensive back, oh my god. I mean, he does the dirty work. You see him against defensive ends, you see him against backers, but man, when he gets up there and there's like a corner, it's just fun. That but to your point, and it's funny because we talked to AJ about this last night on Carry the G. The job DeGuara has done, not just like running routes, being available in the passing game, but in the running game has been really impressive. How they've used him across the formation, like sometimes even as a move, back there. He's been fun, man. That's been a good addition as far as earlier in the season. Obviously, coming off that injury, I thought, okay, definitely not what we saw at the start of last year, but he's really rounded into shape. And I think he could be a legitimate threat because teams are probably going to start keying on the fact that, okay, we know when he's in there, this is a lot of run stuff that we're getting, but I think he could be a legitimate threat in the passing game as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's who they have to use on third downs right now too, as a tight
Right.
end. They don't have that many options. The interesting thing at tight end I thought was Tyler Davis taking away the snaps from Dominic Daphne this past week. It's really the first time tight ends isn't really a position where you look at the depth chart and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 because different
Right.
guys do different things.
Different things, right?
But that's the first week that we've seen Tyler Davis, a spot ahead of Dominic Daphne, who obviously, was dealing with that ankle injury throughout the week. So who knows if he was on a pitch count or whatever. He actually played
Right.
more special team snaps than he did on offense. But the fact that Tyler Davis is now working into the rotation too, if they could get, anything out of Tyler Davis on the offensive side, I think that's a positive because he hasn't really been doing that this year. He's basically just been a special teamer for him. So
Absolutely. And the
if they
thing
could
is
get four guys, hey man,
hey, and I tell you what, when he's been given opportunities, he's played well. His tape is good. And I think that play in Baltimore up the seam for 22 yards when Rodgers has a free man and this kid is right where he's supposed to be, catches the ball, etc. People look at it and they think, oh, it's just one play, but that's a big, big moment,
I
not only
was
for him.
surprised it went to Tyler Davis,
I was
honestly. I was
too.
like I
I
was
was
like, "Oh, they're
shocked.
seeing the blitz, and they're like,
Right.
'Look, we gotta throw the crosser over the middle to Tyler Davis.' They trusted him. He
What?
made the play. It's like,
Right.
"Alright, so I guess he can do this now. Alright,
Right.
cool."
That's what I mean. I mean, that's a big, big moment for a young guy who has not had a lot of snaps. I mean, Rodgers remembers that stuff. We all know his memory. We all know his trust issues and factors when it comes to throwing to guys. I think that's huge for him. And that does kind of lend itself to look at the following week. A lot more playing time for the young man. I don't think it's a coincidence. Obviously, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about special teams because there are 3 phases to the game, Justice. And hey, for the most part, pretty nondescript performance from the special teams, which I guess at this point is all we can ask for as Packers fans. No complete meltdowns in coverage. Made all the extra points and all the kicks, etc. Seemed to be all right in every phase of the operation, so to speak. Hey, special teams. Who do you throw back there if Amari Rodgers is still on the COVID list come Sunday?
I mean, that's the big question, right? I
I,
think Patrick
uh,
Taylor has the skill set to be able to do some of that stuff. He hasn't
yep.
necessarily done it at the NFL level.
Right.
But I would think at the very least as a kick returner, he would be up there. Punt returns, I mean, Shane got some snaps, so like
Yeah.
he's probably
He
next guy
did.
up, just in terms of like someone's got to go do it. So it's
Well, I
probably
know
him or
they tried out somebody from the Canadian Football
CFL.
League. So
Deadman, yeah, they
who
have like this
knows?
weird rule now in the CFL
Yep.
where there's now a window where guys can get because it used to be you could only sign
Right.
them to like futures contracts. Now
Yep.
there's a window that just opened up where you can sign these guys legitimately to the active roster. And so the Deadman, who was a CFL All Star, pretty much exclusively played as a return man, but was used as both a kick returner and punt
I'm
returner. Got a
just
touchdown on
saying.
both.
I'm
Look,
just
man,
saying.
he's got a chance. He's
It's
got a
that time
chance.
of year, baby. We got to do it. We got to pull out all the stops. If the personnel group finds some diamond in the rough in the CFL, I am all for it.
All
Let's
hands
do
on
it.
deck, right? They
All
said
hands
it.
on deck. That's right. Justice, I can't thank you enough for hanging out and talking football with me this week. Let's do it again soon, man.
Anytime, man. Whenever
And
you
make
need
sure
me.
you check out Justice's stuff at Acme Packing Company. Killing it over there. All the coverage the guys and gals do at Acme Packing Company is excellent. Justice in particular. Justice, thanks so much, man.